Alright, this is DC's first movie this year out of 4 they got planned. And technically, these are the last movies of the official Snyderverse. At least that's how I see it. So let's do it! Shazam! Fury of the Gods. So Shazam! Fury of the Gods is the 14th installment of the DC Extended Universe, and it is the sequel to Shazam, which came out about 3 years ago. Now, if you remember, I was not the biggest fan of that one, and to be sure, I watched it yesterday before going to see this new one, and I'm still not the biggest fan of it. This one, however, in my opinion, made quite a few improvements. So in Shazam! Fury of the Gods, Billy Batson, once again played by Asher Angel and Zachary Levi, he's got a case of imposter syndrome. He's not really sure what to do now that he is a superhero, and the people of Philadelphia see him and his siblings as superheroes. But now the daughters of Atlas, they have come into our realm. They have a grudge against Billy Batson and his companions, so now we have to deal with that. And let the fun movie commence. Yeah, I gotta say, I enjoyed this one. I know this movie's getting a lot of diverse reviews. Some people love it, some people just think it's okay, some people hate it. One thing is for certain, and that is the fact that this movie is not doing as well as DC probably hoped it would. Which is a bummer, because there are things to really love about this movie, I think. First off, Zachary Levi as Shazam, and also Asher Angel. I say it like that because he is mostly Zachary Levi in this movie. He has a lot more screen time as Zachary Levi than he does as Asher Angel. But they both do a really good job, and the character's a lot more likable in this movie than he was in the first one. I mean, Zachary Levi, he's so charismatic, you know? He's a man-child, he was perfect casting. I just love him in this role. But I also want to give props to Jack Dylan Grazer reprising his role as Freddie Freeman. I thought he did a great job in this movie as well. I like the character story arc that this movie puts Freddie through. They did give him something to do in this one, and I was thoroughly entertained by it. But alright, let's talk about the villains, the Daughters of Atlas. We have Helen Mirren as Hespera, Lucy Liu as Calypso, and Rachel Zegler as Anthea. Alright, first off, Helen Mirren. I loved her in this movie, man. Cause she's Helen Mirren. She plays the Helen Mirren type character, you know? She's stoic, she's menacing. I mean, you know, she's that old British woman. Or sorry, not old. Did I call you old? I'm so sorry, Helen Mirren. You're young at heart. Look, everyone loves Helen Mirren. She is an international treasure. I'm pretty sure in this movie she had no idea she was being filmed. She does chew scenery in this one, I gotta say, which is great. Lucy Liu as Calypso, though, out of all the characters in this movie, she was the one whose acting I bought the least, I gotta say. I don't know, just something about the delivery of her lines had me going, Her powers were really cool, though. I don't want to give them away since the trailers didn't really specify, but I like them. And then finally, we have Rachel Zegler as Anthea. Alright, now if you saw the West Side Story movie that Steven Spielberg made, you know that Rachel Zegler is an awesome young actress and singer. In this movie, I thought she was pretty good. She starts off as a fellow high school student to Billy and Freddie. She and Freddie do have kind of a romance-ish thing going on. I thought she was great in that role. But then when she is Anthea, you know, in her regal attire, I was like, well, alright. These are really just nitpicks, but I just gotta say, it felt more like she was acting, you know what I mean? I don't know, I just didn't quite buy the fact that she was this 6,000-year-old goddess. She wasn't terrible by any means, but, you know. Alright, now for the rest of the movie. Like I said, I enjoyed this one considerably more than the first one. Cause the big problem I had with the first one was plot holes. There were a lot of things where I called bullshit. I was like, no, that wouldn't happen like that. Come on, the wizard had plenty of time to stop Savannah from getting that power in the first place. In Fury of the Gods, there are a lot less plot holes like that. There are still a couple. Things where I was like, how did you know to do that? Nah, I call bullshit, that just doesn't make sense. But in this one, they only happen a couple of times. Like twice, maybe 3 times. Whereas in the first one, it was like a bunch more than that. Or at least it felt that way. There is one big plot hole towards the end of this movie that really does stand out in my mind where I was like, no, just no. Again, how did you know that? But I digress. Some of the humor in this movie landed with me, some didn't. There were some jokes I actually did find genuinely funny. I mean, Shazam is a really interesting and unique concept. He's a kid, or at least a teenager, who becomes an adult superhero but still has that teenage angst mind in his head. There's plenty of humor to be had with that. I just love to see Zachary Levi having such a blast playing this character, you know?
I just threw a truck at a dragon. I love my life.
It's charismatic, it's contagious. The energy comes from him through the silver screen to us, the audience. And that's always such a fun experience, at least for me. But then there were some jokes where I was like, alright, don't be stupid, director. Or writer. It felt like that high school-ish humor from the John Watts Spider-Man movies, you know? Where it's like, oh, you're trying to be funny for the kids in the audience. But I guess myself, at least trying to think I am more mature than that, I was like, this is not landing with me today. But let's talk about the action in this movie, because I thought the action in this movie was awesome. No, seriously, seeing Shazam and his siblings flying around doing their Shazamish thing. There were quite a few moments in this movie in particular where I was like, oh, that was so cool. Like out loud, I was like, that is so cool. They're using all their different powers, you know, they're flying around, they got super strength, they have lightning powers like Thor or Electro. It's just really cool to see. I have not yet come down with superhero movie fatigue, and I really hope I never do. Their suits look really cool. They are different from the suits in the last movie. And yeah, there is no real explanation for it. Do I care? No. Cause whatever, you know, superheroes have different suits in different movies all the time. I can brush that off. And there is a dragon in this movie, and if you don't know me by now, I am a big dragon fan. I love a good dragon. This dragon is awesome. He's like a statue of a dragon come to life. My friend who I saw this movie with actually described him in a really good way. Since it breathes blue fire, he described him as a Godzilla dragon. I was like, yeah, this is like if Godzilla were a dragon. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty fucking rad to me. This dragon is super cool. But as cool as all of the action is, and some of the humor that landed, some that didn't, and everything that goes with it, this movie does have a good emotional message at its center. Which I know the first one did too, and that's actually one of the things I liked about the first one. The emotional story it told with Billy Batson I thought was like one of its saving graces. In this one, I felt it was a really good arc for Billy to go through in the sequel. You know, these Shazam movies, they're coming-of-age stories, just like the John Watts Spider-Man movies. In fact, just like any Spider-Man movie in general. And I'm not trying to fuel any fires here. The fact that I'm comparing Shazam to Spider-Man, that's a positive. I'm giving praise to this movie. That's a good thing. You know, Billy Batson and his family, they're learning the responsibilities of being a superhero. That's an important thing for superheroes to learn. This movie pulled that off very well, I thought. And the score, I thought, was really good. We have Christoph Beck this time around replacing Benjamin Wallfisch, who scored the first one. Christoph Beck, we all know who he is at this point. He's a really good composer. He's starting to become one of my favorites, if I'm being honest. Hell, he just did Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I like the score in this movie a lot more than the score from the first one, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, they both do a good job at having that heroic fanfare, you know? So maybe it's just because I like this movie more than the first one? I don't know. All I know is that Christoph Beck rarely disappoints me these days. So in the end, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, I had a great time with it. And honestly, I can't wait to watch it again. The characters are great, I like the villains a lot. That's a major improvement over the first movie. But this movie is not perfect. There are still a couple of things I do call bullshit on, which I'll touch on in my spoiler talk. But the action is completely kick-ass. You feel the stakes. Gotta say, director David F. Sandberg, I think he did a solid job here. For Shazam! Fury of the Gods, I will say, go see this movie while it's in theaters. And there is a mid-credit scene and a post-credit scene, so stick around for those. So Shazam! Fury of the Gods, have you seen it yet? What are your thoughts on it? And what did you like better, this or Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? I'm curious. Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Shazam!